right, so it's been about a week or two since I got all these records from the county estate auction. I already did a video on the 45s, but I actually bought a second lot of records, which turns out they're owned by the same guy. So this is like the first box from that lot, and those were all LPs. So what was going on was I already got the lot of 45s, and I thought, okay, I'll buy one of the cheaper lot of LPs because there were other lots that had a lot of obviously valuable stuff, like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Beatles, stuff like that. So what I did is I just said to heck with it. I already got to drive out and pick up those 45s, so I might as well just buy a second lot. So I bought a lot of stuff that looked like it was a lot of less valuable stuff, a lot of thrift story type stuff with some good stuff mixed in. And I got this lot for $45. So I've actually separated some of the good stuff already. So I'm going to go through each box. There's like 4 boxes, plus I've got a box where I put some of the better stuff and some of the actual valuable stuff. And we're going to go through it in this video. Let's go check these out. All right, so this isn't going to be like the 45 video where I'm going to talk about every one and then forever. I'm just going to flip through them and then I'll talk about some of them. We got one of those quiz blooper show records. These used to pop up in thrift stores all the time, those blooper records. I've never seen these particularly, sports bloopers. They've got great graphics on it, mid-century stuff. Someone would probably buy that just for the graphics on the cover, and these are actually in really, really good condition. These records, these Meet Mr. Blooper records. I've got a few of these, probably in my collection of weird stuff I used to buy at thrift stores back when thrift store records were actually cheap in the 80s and 90s. Gay 90s, Roaring 20s, Dick Sinclair, once again, something thrift store. Now, if you ever see stuff like this in thrift store, usually the edges are all destroyed. That's because they've been there a long time. So generally, if you go to a thrift store, you see records that are this crisp and clean. Those are usually the ones they just set out. So those are the ones you're more likely usually to find good stuff in than the ones that, every person that's been through in the last 2 weeks or who knows how long, depending on how long they rotate their stock. Some thrift stores hardly ever rotate their stock, and they just assume people are going to pay for vinyl. And then generally the edges of the albums just get destroyed just because so many people went through it and passed on it. So I did find a Bill Cosby record. Not sure the value on these. Produced by Alan Sherman, but this is in excellent condition. I mean, obviously Bill Cosby is sort of a controversial figure now, so not something someone's going to want. Jose Jimenez, Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart albums come up a lot. I actually have a collection of comedy records. Why did I say classical? Comedy records that I put aside, so that'll probably go in there. Damn Yankee soundtrack, Young and the Restless, 38 Great Motion Pictures. It's probably this is United Artists, so it's actually the real deal. So it's got a bunch of Volume 3. It's got a lot of themes to different movies. Not necessarily worth anything. This is like a set of Abbott and Costello, Burns and Allen, Jack Benny, stuff like that. People like this stuff just as like a historic. I'm sure all this stuff is online or on YouTube already. So, but if someone wanted on vinyl, this set might sell for a few bucks. Another, random soundtrack from the 60s. Of course, a thrift store classic, The First Family. I think this is my only copy because I don't think I ever bought one of these, but they pop up in thrift. They use every time you go to a thrift store, you find one of these. This one's in mint. So instead of being worth 50 cents, it's probably worth 51 cents. The Al Jolson story on Decca. So, just stuff like that. Love story. Hit themes from Nelson Riddle. So, sort of jazzy. This one's really dirty. I don't know if this will even clean. That's where that one must have been in the front. And then when they put them in boxes, it was probably on the end of whatever stack of wherever they got these at. Stereo Action, Marty Gold, Henry Mancini, Sing Along with Mitch, another thrift store fodder classic that you find all the time in thrift stores, so it's not worth anything. Victor at Sea, you find those all the time in thrift stores. Love Story, Exodus. I swear we're going to get to some good stuff. Actual speeches by JFK and Franklin Roosevelt. Somebody might want these as a historic thing, plus it's got the pictures of the presidents on it there. South Pacific, another common one. Casablanca, but it's newly recorded, so it's not the original from the movie. Someone might want it just for the cover with Humphrey Bogart on it, more than the actual record. Age of Aquarius. It's a very common LP from the late 60s or 1970s, somewhere around there. Judy Garland. I said not necessarily. Longest Day soundtrack. Once again, the artwork's probably cooler than the actual. Is probably what makes the record even something someone would want. And it's a real one. It's 20th Century Fox Records. My Fair Lady soundtrack. My mother actually was in that movie, so maybe I'll give that to my mother. Burt Bacharach, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid soundtrack. It's got 2 Academy Awards, so I'm guessing it's not a first pressing because the first pressing probably wouldn't have that on there already. Sound of Music. I mean, these are real common soundtracks, stuff you find. Stuff someone might want, especially being in such good condition, but probably worth a few dollars each at most. West Side Story, there's actually a remake coming out of that, and Rocky soundtrack, which is a fairly common soundtrack from the 70s. So we're going to move on to box 2 right now. Okay, I will say I have, this is a next box. I think there's 4 boxes, and then the 5th box, it's the one I moved like the cooler stuff into that'll be at the end of the video. This is Doris Day, so not necessarily worth anything. Here's one out of a sleeve. It's a colored vinyl. Just a generic one, but these colored vinyls are cool for like wall hangings, and there's no sleeve for it. I don't think it's worth anything. George Benson, Breezin', common stuff from the late 70s, good yacht rocky type stuff. Mr. C, I don't know who this is, so Perry Como. Okay, Perry Como, obviously big in the thrift store vinyl scene. Where There's Life, Russ David. This has a cool look. It's got a Budweiser on there. I mean, this, and I see it's got the sleeve. It's kind of like one of those where it keeps going and going. I like the sleeve with the record, with the Budweiser. Like, that's a cool wall hanger. That's a cool one to put in a frame, stick on your wall, especially if you have like a bar or something. So that's probably what that would wind up being used for. Lawrence Welk, not worth anything. Lawrence Welk. Letterman, She Cried. Letterman, they wind up in the thrift stores a lot too. Kind of folky stuff, but in good shape. Once again, maybe like $1 or $2. 50 Stars of Country Music on 2 records, high fidelity, and it's on Columbia, so it's probably legit. Oh, sorry, I grabbed Dave Brubeck by accident. So it's got like it's on Great Country Music, so I don't know, Jimmy Dean, stuff like that. But some people like those compilations, but it's got a really flimsy sleeve, so I'm guessing it's probably got that groove that's like compressed, so it probably doesn't have the best sound. So probably not something that's really worth anything. Dave Brubeck's Greatest Hits. Not sure why they would do a jazz album as a greatest hits, a jazz artist as a greatest hits, but someone might want it actually. But generally with a Gabe Brubeck, they're common enough where you could probably collect the full albums fairly easily. I mean, of course, it's got Take 5, and you know that's the #1 song on there, probably the most common jazz song that everybody knows. Andy Williams, Hawaiian Wedding Song, not worth anything. Guy Lombardo. So this box we see a lot. Roger Williams, Harry James on United Artists, Benny Goodman. So we're going to go to the next box because I'm sure there'll be better stuff. All right, so box 3, here we go. We start with the Mills Brothers Greatest Hits, you know, with like Glowworm and all that old person stuff. It's kind of surprising because the same guy had all these like rock and roll records and Yardbirds and Beatles and Stones, and yet he had this stuff. Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond is really becoming thrift store fodder. It used to be like, oh yeah, I'll grab it. It's an old Diamond record. But they press so many of these that they're just not worth anything. More Neil Diamond. One Stormy Night, Mystic Moods Orchestra. Interesting cover, but I don't think it's really worth anything. Another Mystic Moods. Johnny Mathis. You all know what you're getting there. More Johnny Mathis. Alive of, I'm not sure what this is. Jose Feliciano. Oh great, I just missed it. So let me put Jose Feliciano over there. Jose Feliciano, not worth anything. Unfortunately, like I said, there was a lot of bad stuff. The last box in this, I'll show you the really good stuff I found in these. But Julio Iglesias, another thrift store classic. That's just some random, I don't even know who that is. Pete Fountain, just another JFK. They did a lot of JFK memorial stuff. In fact, a lot of people kept the Life magazine when he died. So the Life magazine from when JFK died is actually the most common by far Life magazine, so it's the one that's like worth the least among Life magazine collectors. More Perry Como, Nat King Cole, those are common as well. Jim Neighbors, very common. Bobby Martin, probably very common. And then this one, I got a couple of the 7-inch version of this album, the EP. It's the same cover. I mean, Bobby Darin's cool, but it's just, like I said, it's extremely common. So let's go to the next box. Okay, this is the very last box before I get to the box of the stuff that I found I thought was really good in here. Keep in mind I paid $45 for this lot, so you can let me know in the comments if you think I got hosed or if I did okay. Dominique, this is very common. You find these in thrift stores a lot. It's very weird because back then it was like the late 50s, early 60s. For a singing nun, it was actually a real nun that did this song in French, and it was a big hit in the United States. It's only back then could that happen. One of these German albums, random German album, probably not anything. Schubert, classical's really tough. Some is worth money, most is not. Pavarotti, I said there's a lot of this stuff that you find in thrift stores a lot. Living Voices, another German album on CBS, but these 120 music masterpieces, these pop up a lot too in thrift stores, like all the time. So not worth anything, completely worthless. A set of Reader's Digest. I bought another lot from Maxell. There was a bunch of Reader's Digest cassettes, like the cassettes that they did some of these albums, and like nobody wants that stuff. Once again, more stuff, German stuff. Nobody really wants. I mean, they have cool covers, so they're great for like a very ironic wall hangings, if you will. The German Rhine, Vic Damone. I swear we're gonna get to some good stuff. How about a '78? It's Vietnamese or Viennese waltzes. Pretty much just a lot of terrible stuff. 101 Strings. It's another like thrift store. You always find those 101 Strings albums. I don't know how many of those they sold back then, but they made a fortune. I think these were the same guys that did the Tops sound-alike records, I think is what I saw. It's manufactured by Budget Sound, according to that. If I understand, it was the same people, or were related to the people that did the Tops sound-alike records, where you bought like 4 songs on one record, and they were all basically made to sound like the hit version, but they weren't. Treasury of Christmas, Columbia Record Club. So it's a bunch of Christmas music on LPs. Piano Concerto, Nutcracker. These I don't know what to do with these. I'm probably going to throw these up for sale. And if nobody grabs them, they might be winding up in a thrift store, a lot of these terrible ones. So now we're going to go off and we're going to check out the next box, which is the good stuff I found in this lot. Okay, so I already separated. These are the ones I separated before before I made the video. That came from the same lot of records. But now you're probably like, oh, you totally got hosed for $45. But let's see what we got here. We got Ringo, not Ringo Starr, but I like Western covers. Some people like Western covers just to put on their wall. Midnight Cowboy soundtrack. I'm sure that's worth a few bucks because... of course, sort of like it was like the first X-rated movie that was like up for an Oscar or something like that. Of course, now I think they re-rated it since so they could screen it more places because obviously now it would not qualify for an X rating if it was released now, since times were different back then. But I don't think I've ever run across one of these. And of course, it's got Everybody's Talking, which if you see the movie, that song's played throughout the entire movie to the point where you're sick of it by the end. Bye Bye Birdie soundtrack with Dick Van Dyke, Ann Margaret, Bobby Rydell, Janet Leigh, and then Ed Sullivan. Big movie. Not sure if this... I'm sure this is a very common record, but it's in really nice condition, so someone probably would want it. Graduate, obviously a very common record. This one, actually, I had a copy of it, but mine, the sleeve... I thought the other one I had was in good shape. The sleeve had the cracking that those late, the 50s and 60s LPs always crack because the cardboard, the way that they're put together. This one's not. It's a Mary Poppins soundtrack in really minty condition, which of course this would qualify as a kids record. Most kids records just get completely destroyed. This one's in really good shape. And of course Disney's very collectible, so I can imagine this would be even like a $10 or $15 record. This one I put aside. This one sells between $6 and $65. I'm on Discogs. I'm guessing the $65 is for like a sealed copy. It's the Batman theme. an RCA Victor, Neil Hefti, and 11 Hefty Bat songs. Of course, Batman, very collectible since it's a comic book character, and it's off the TV show from the 60s, so it's vintage, and it's even got the Batusi on it, which is pretty famous. So that, unfortunately, the guy wrote his number. The guy on a lot of the good ones, the guy wrote his phone number, I'm guessing, for when he went to parties and such. But that would be a great addition to somebody's Batman collection. So that probably explains the value. 6 probably on the low end, 65 on the high. I'm guessing if you had this out, you could probably put 50 or 20 on it and sell it, and you'd probably get it because it's Batman. Lone Ranger. These are the old radio shows on LP. I looked up. I think these sell for about $10 each. These sets, and I got know it's the Green Hornet. These are the old serial radio shows, but they are still a little bit collectible, not necessarily valuable. Fame soundtrack, common, but this one's in really nice condition. Just has a lot of dust on it. Flashdance, these sells for 75 cents to 40. 40 is probably for a sealed copy. Common, yeah, but something if you had it out for like 10 or $5 or $10 at a swap meet or something, someone would probably snap it up. James Bomb, not Bond, Bomb. Hanna-Barbera, Super Snooper. This one sells between $10 and $16 because it's a comic book. And once again, this is a kid's record, but it's in exceptional condition. It's put out on Hanna-Barbera Records. They actually put out rock songs. I've got some 45s put out by Hanna-Barbera that are actually rock and soul records. And, of course, the artwork, it being like a cartoon collectible from the 60s. So I definitely, on Discogs, it sold between 10 and 16 for comps. Cheech and Chong, this one sells for between $4.20. It actually said that on Discogs, so I'm not making that up. From $4.20, laugh all you want, to $10. I've seen it online for like $10 to $15. I believe it's like Cheech and Chong's first album. So that's kind of cool. And I like Cheech and Chong, so I held on to that one. Lenny Bruce album. This one sells for $20, which I thought it would be more. It's actually a double album. It's in really good condition. I figured being Lenny Bruce, it would be worth more money, but it's worth about $20. This one's a Leslie Gore Golden Hits. Sunshine Lollipops, It's My Party, all those songs by Leslie Gore. Of course, he wrote his number on it. It's something you could probably sell for like $10. Frank Sinatra, September My Years. Frank Sinatra LPs are usually pretty common, so probably not worth a ton, but people do like to collect Frank Sinatra. We have That's Life, Only the Lonely. I found this one. I like Motown stuff, so I grabbed The Contours, Do You Love Me? It took me forever to find a 45 of that song. I finally have an original copy of 45, although I'm sure it's very common. Do You Love Me Now That I Can Dance? And it's got a great 60s cover on it. I didn't really look up the value on this one, but probably a $5 or $10 one. I got a Kingsman with Louie, so it's a early garage record. Unfortunately, it's got some wear on it, and he did write his phone number on the label. He wrote it on the back too, just in case. And it's got Long Tall Texan, Night Train. I think everybody did Night Train. We found somebody else that did Night Train. King's been doing Mashed Potatoes. King's been doing Money. So, but it's cool because it's the Kingsman. So even with the writing on it, it's probably a $5 or $10 record. Righteous Brothers, You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. I found a 45 in the other lot, and actually when I played it, it was one of those styrenes where it must have been played on a terrible needle or a kid's record player, because it did not play very well. But it's actually got a sticker. That's actually a sticker for the stereo version. So it was probably the early days of there being stereo and mono versions. And of course, he wrote down my name and number on the back as well on that one, unfortunately. 20 solid gold hits on Crystal. It's got like Tommy James and the Shondells, Janis Joplin, Vanilla Fudge. That's cool. Bee Gees, Animals, Brooklyn Bridge, Cowsills, Derek, Love Spoonful, Turtles, Righteous Brothers, J.J. Jackson, Miracles, Benny King, and Joe Tex. So it's one of those. I don't think it's a kid. Oh, it's As Seen on TV. So I bet you the grooves are compressed. Unfortunately, a lot of these. But it's got a cool, like, psychedelic 60s cover. So the cover's probably better than the record, would be my guess. Because since it's an As Seen on TV, And there's a lot of songs on there. There's no way they didn't compress that. A Nancy Wilson LP, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. That's probably worth something to somebody, I'm sure. Probably very common. The Alamo with John Wayne soundtrack. I never run across this. It's probably common. I don't remember ever coming across this one, but anything John Wayne is probably collectible to somebody, although I'm sure it's not super rare, but it's probably a $5 record. I like these old 60s racing records. We got Exciting Racing Sounds of Grand Prix, Challenge of Champions, and it's just basically sounds from Grand Prix. So we got the tracks on it. So that's kind of cool. The Big Sounds of the Sports Cars. So sound effects from sports cars on Capitol. And it's got all the imagery from auto racing. This would probably go to an auto racing collectible. Unfortunately, he wrote his name. I don't know why he did that, because this isn't something you would take to a party and put on a turntable at a party. So I don't really know why he put his name on that one. And the guy was a bowler. I don't know if you saw. I posted the other day the bowling song, which was out of print, so it was the theme to like a bowling TV show. If you watch my last couple videos back, it'll be on there, and I posted the song because it cleared copyright on YouTube, so I was able to post it. But it's actually just a campy song about bowling that was the theme song to, it was the Bowling Time TV show, which I looked up was a TV show that only ran for 1 year, from like 56 to 57. So really obscure record. I'm sure it's probably very few copies in existence, but I put it on my channel so you can enjoy it and enjoy the campiness of it. Sounds like something from a John Waters movie, if you will. But this guy also had a 45 that's an advertisement for a bowling tournament. I might post that as well, since obviously that shouldn't have any problem clearing copyright. Since it was just an advertisement some guy did. 7 Days to Better Bowling. This one goes between 5 and 15. I'm guessing because of the artwork. Because like that would look cool on somebody's wall. And 7 Days to Better Bowling. So, but it's collectible just as a bowling record. This was a neat one. I played this one a little bit. It's Dracula's Greatest Hits. Now this is just in time for Halloween. This one goes between 10 and 45. Now, this record originally came with a sheet of trading cards, which is missing, unfortunately. So I'm going to say it's probably closer to the $10 or $15 level because that's missing. I'm sure it's... And this is also a kid's record, sort of. So I can imagine most of the copies of this in existence are probably destroyed. This one's actually in really nice condition, plays great. And it has a lot of parody songs sung by a Dracula impersonator, and it says, warning, this is a horrible record. I can verify this record's horrible, but it's horrible in a 60s camp way, so that's what makes it kind of cool. And of course it has I Want to Bite Your Hand instead of I Want to Hold Your Hand. Ghoul Days, Little Black Bag, King Kong Stomp, New Frankenstein and Johnny Song, Frankenstein, Drac the Knife, which is a parody of Mac the Knife, Monster Hootenanny, Surf Monster, Carry Me Back to Transylvania, Monster Goose Rhymes, and Monster Bossa Nova. So it has a neat artwork on it. But it's done by Gene Moss and sing-along chorus by the Monsters. Just a neat one, put out in 1964 by RCA. See, it says this album contains 15 cards of your favorite monsters. That's missing, but the vinyl's actually in really nice condition. So that'll be great to play like around Halloween, which is in a couple weeks. Got a Shaft soundtrack, nothing setting the world on fire, but it's always nice to find a copy of Shaft. And this is neat. I got Boss Drag at the Beach by the T-Bones, which is a drag race surf album, of course. And this sells between 12 and 18 on Discogs. And it's got this great dragster and then surf. So it's drag and surf cover. And on the back, it's got a nice dragster motif on it. And unfortunately, he wrote his name on this one as well. But it's not, as a surf album goes, it's not the greatest, but it's got cool artwork. It's in really good, the actual record's in really good shape, even though the record's, the sleeve is a little bit worn. But something that's collectible. I like hot rods. I like surf music, so that's probably a keeper for me. And then the last one in the more interesting pile, we got "Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying," Jerry and the Pacemakers. Actually, I was playing this about a week ago. It sounds fine. So it's got don't. So of course, "Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying" was a big hit. So was "How Do You Do It," and it's got a lot of other songs recorded in England because they had to put that on there. This was like early British invasion, and it has the guy's number on it. Back when you didn't have to use a area code, and it's actually in really nice condition other than the writing, so it's probably like a $5 or $10 record. But those are the good ones. So let me know what you think. Did I get burned? I did okay. I had to go about half an hour each way to go pick them up, along with the 45s. The 45s I did really well on. There were some condition issues after I shot the video on some of the styrene 60s records. There was generally, you could tell the records were between a couple of years in the 60s that had problems where they were probably played on either a poor needle or a kid's record player. But the 50s stuff all played beautifully, like they were just pressed. So I was happy about that. I definitely got my money's worth out of that lot. Plus, I believe I got my money's worth plus out of this one. So I've been doing these record videos, stuff I find, other things I find. I've got a lot of boom boxes I picked up off Max Sold. I got to pick up tomorrow. That'll wind up on the channel, as well as I got some books and DVDs out of the same one. It's like 10 minutes from my house, so I got to pick that up tomorrow. Can't remember what else I have a video coming up of. I probably have more records that are obscure that I'm going to post on the channel. And I've got, what else? I'm sure there's other stuff that's going to come up. So be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment about some of the records. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.